Have you ever heard of the Blackwood Hotel disappearances? The police never found the bodies, or what was left of them. They found Margaret's journal 3 weeks after she vanished. The leather-bound book was tucked beneath a loose floorboard in room 2T7 of the Blackwood Hotel, a room she had never checked into. The hotel manager claimed Margaret had only booked a single night in room 11. Security footage showed her entering her assigned room at 9:42 p.m., but never leaving. Yet somehow her belongings ended up scattered across room 2T7 3 floors above. It's happening again tonight. The whispers started at 3:17 a.m. just like before. They're coming from inside the walls, but not just any walls. Only the ones facing north. I've tested this theory in 3 different rooms now. The voice is always the same, always asking for help finding something called the artifact. I finally gathered the courage to respond. That was my mistake. When I asked what artifact it was searching for, the whispering stopped. Complete silence for exactly 12 minutes. Then the temperature dropped so rapidly I could see my breath. The mirror fogged, and words appeared. You shouldn't have asked. I need to leave this place, but I'm not sure I can. The doorknob is ice cold to the touch, and when I look through the peephole, I don't see the hallway anymore. I see the entry ends abruptly. A single line stretches from the final word, as if her pen was dragged across the page. Detective Elias Mercer had investigated disappearances for 17 years, but something about the Blackwood case made his skin crawl. It wasn't just Margaret. She was the 7th disappearance connected to room 2T7. Each victim stayed in a different room initially. Mercer explained to his new partner, but evidence of their presence always turned up in 2T7. Electronics drained of power, personal items arranged in precise geometric patterns, and always those symbols. He spread photos across his desk, close-ups of tiny markings carved into baseboards, door frames, and mirror edges. Carbon dating puts some of these carvings at over 100 years old. But here's where it gets strange. He pulled out Margaret's journal. Her sketches match perfectly, but she drew these months before ever visiting the hotel. When they interviewed Margaret's sister, she revealed something chilling. Margaret had night terrors as a child. She would wake up screaming about the cold man who whispered numbers through the heating vents. Our parents thought it was just nightmares, but she always mentioned the same numbers, 237. The hotel refused to close room 237, claiming insufficient evidence of danger. They did, however, grant Mercer permission to install cameras. For 6 nights, nothing happened. On the 7th night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., all equipment simultaneously malfunctioned. When the systems came back online 12 minutes later, they captured something impossible. The room's mirror showed a reflection of the room, but not the room as it currently existed. In the reflection, the walls were covered with hundreds of the symbols, and a figure stood in the corner, its features indistinct, except for unnaturally long fingers that seemed to be tracing new markings into the wall. Most disturbing was the temperature log. During those 12 minutes, the room had reached 17 degrees Celsius, cold enough to form frost patterns across every surface. When staff checked the room the following morning, it was a comfortable 22 degrees, with no sign of moisture or frost damage. Mercer couldn't let it go. He checked into room 11 just as Margaret had done. His body cam footage recovered after his disappearance shows him awake at 3:16 a.m., watching the connecting wall to the neighboring room. At exactly 3:17, the audio picks up a faint sound. Need your help, find the artifact. They've hidden it, behind the walls. Mercer's voice, steady despite the circumstances. What artifact? The whispering stops. 12 minutes of silence follow before the temperature drops dramatically. Frost forms on the camera lens. The mirror fogs and words appear. You're getting closer. Mercer approaches the wall, places his hand against it. It's vibrating, he whispers to himself. Then a sound from inside the wall, scratching, like fingernails on wood. Mercer steps back, draws his weapon. Police, identify yourself. The scratching intensifies. A hairline crack appears in the wall, widening slowly. Mercer's flashlight illuminates something moving within the crack, something pale and elongated. What the hell? The footage cuts to static. When it resumes 17 minutes later, Mercer is gone. His weapon and flashlight rest on the floor. The wall is intact, with no sign of damage. But a new symbol has been carved into the baseboard. One that doesn't match any previously documented. The police investigation stalled. The hotel finally sealed room 237. But it was too late. Reports came in from guests in adjacent rooms. Whispers in the walls, asking for help finding the artifact. Stranger still were the dreams. Guests throughout the hotel reported identical nightmares of standing in room 237, watching as something emerged from behind the wall, something ancient, that had been trapped there, something now spreading throughout the building, room by room. 3 months later, a maintenance worker discovered a hidden crawl space between rooms. Inside was a small wooden box sealed with wax containing a single item, a tarnished bronze key, unlike any used in the hotel. Attached was a yellowed note dated 1889. "We built these walls to contain it. Never remove this key. Never open what was sealed. The artifact must remain buried, or it will find new vessels for its journey." The key disappeared from the evidence locker that night. Room 237 remains sealed to this day, but hotel staff report that sometimes, in the early morning hours, they hear scratching from behind the walls, not just in 237 anymore, but throughout the entire north wing. Some say if you press your ear against any north-facing wall at exactly 3:17 a.m., you can hear the whispers too. But they warn, never ever respond. What happened to Margaret, Detective Mercer and the others? What lies behind those walls, and what is the artifact they're still searching for? What would you see if you looked through that peephole? Share your theories in the comments below. The town of Lakeside hasn't recorded a drowning in 86 years. Not because nobody drowns, but because whatever takes them isn't finished with the bodies. Sheriff Dana Winters had lived in Lakeside her entire life, yet she had never set foot in the water. No one who grew up there did. It was the first rule every local learned: don't touch the lake. Tourists, however, were a different matter. Another missing person? Dana sighed, reviewing the report. Jessica Chen, 26, environmental researcher from Boston University. Last seen taking water samples near the old boathouse. Third one this season, Deputy Morris confirmed. Her equipment was still on the dock, including her phone. Recording app was still running when we found it. Dana frowned. Did you listen to it? Morris nodded, his face pale. You need to hear it yourself. Audio recording transcript. Jessica Chen, August 17, 2:14 p.m. Sound of water lapping against dock. Jessica, sample 14 from the western shore. Temperature is consistent with previous readings, but there's that same unusual mineral composition. Wait, what's that? Shuffling sounds, movement. Jessica, hello? Is someone there? Silence for 8 seconds. Jessica, I can see you in the water. Do you need help? Splashing sounds. Jessica, oh my god, how are you? Sudden harsh static, followed by a sound that audio analysts have described as multiple voices speaking simultaneously but in reverse. Jessica, get away from. Recording ends. By nightfall, search teams had found nothing. No body, no blood, no signs of struggle. Jessica Chen had simply vanished, like the others before her. That night, Dana received a call from Dr. Harrison at the local clinic. I need you to come see something, he said, his voice unsteady. A patient just walked in. She's asking for you specifically. When Dana arrived, Harrison led her to an isolation room. Through the observation window, she saw a woman sitting motionless on the examination table, her back to the door. She won't let anyone touch her, Harrison whispered. No ID, completely soaked, won't respond to question, just keeps repeating your name. Who is she? That's the thing. She looks exactly like Lisa Mercer. Dana felt her blood run cold. Lisa Mercer had disappeared at the lake 20 years ago when they were both 16. That's impossible, Dana whispered. Lisa's dead. I know, Harrison replied. I signed her death certificate myself when they found pieces of her washed up 3 weeks after she vanished. Dana entered the room slowly. Hello? I'm Sheriff Winters. The woman turned, and Dana's heart stopped. It was Lisa, not aged a day since she disappeared. Water dripped constantly from her hair, forming a puddle on the floor despite the hours she'd been sitting there. Dana, Lisa smiled, her voice gurgling slightly as if speaking through liquid. You never came in with me. You promised, but you never came in. Lisa, what happened to you? Where have you been? In the deep. With the others. Lisa's eyes filmed over with something like cataracts but with an oily rainbow sheen, fixed on Dana. It's so beautiful down there. The old town, the church steeple, all the houses, just like they were before the valley was flooded. Dana's mouth went dry. The original town of Lakeside had indeed been flooded in 1937 when the dam was built, relocating residents to higher ground. The sunken ruins were now under hundreds of feet of water. That's not possible. No one could survive down there. We don't, Lisa said simply. That's the point. We change. And now it wants you to join us. She extended her hand, water running from her fingertips. It's always wanted you, Dana. Why do you think it took me instead? You were supposed to come with me that day. What are you talking about? What is? Lisa's smile widened unnaturally. The collector, the one who's been gathering us since they flooded its home, building a new congregation beneath the water. She leaned forward. Jessica asked me to give you a message. She says there's still room for one more in her research team. She's waiting for you at the old boathouse. Dana backed toward the door. You're not Lisa. Not anymore, she agreed. But I remember being her. I remember how you promised to go swimming with me that day, then got scared and backed out. I went in alone. Lisa's face suddenly contorted with rage. You were supposed to come with me. The overhead lights flickered. When they stabilized, Lisa was standing inches from Dana's face. It's been patient, Dana. So patient. But the water is rising. The dam is weakening. Soon, the whole town will be where it belongs, back under the lake. Lisa reached out, her fingers elongating impossibly, skin splitting to reveal glistening dark webbing between them. The water is waiting for you. Dana fled the room, slamming the isolation door shut. Through the window, she watched in horror as Lisa's body seemed to collapse in on itself, melting into a puddle of brackish water that swirled across the floor and disappeared into a drain. The next morning, the clinic had no record of the strange visit. The security footage showed Dana entering the isolation room, then conversing with thin air for 6 minutes before running out in terror. But the puddle was real, and when environmental tests came back, the water matched the unique mineral composition of the lake. 3 days later, dam inspectors discovered previously undetected structural damage, extensive cracks that couldn't be explained by normal wear. Engineers estimated the dam had less than a month before catastrophic failure. As evacuation orders went out, Dana found herself drawn to the lake's edge for the first time since she was 16. At the old boathouse, she discovered Jessica Chen's recorder, now inexplicably dry and functioning. She pressed play, and heard her own voice, a conversation from 20 years ago. I don't know, Lisa. The water looks weird today. Don't be such a baby, Dana. You promised. We're blood sisters now, remember? We do everything together. Maybe tomorrow. Fine, be a coward. I'm going in. Dana switched off the recorder, tears streaming down her face. In the distance, she could see ripples forming on the lake's surface, concentric circles moving toward the shore toward her. As the water lapped at the dock, she heard whispers, dozens of voices calling her name. Among them, she recognized Jessica's, Lisa's, and the voices of everyone who had disappeared into the lake over the decades. The water stilled, becoming mirror-like, reflecting not Dana's face, but the image of an underwater town, buildings preserved in perfect condition, streets filled with figures that moved in ways humans never could, all surrounding a church, where something massive and ancient pulsed within the steeple. The dam will fail in 3 days, the town of Lakeside will return to the depth, and something is still waiting for Dana to fulfill a childhood promise. What is the collector? Why has it waited so patiently for Dana specifically? And what happens when the dam finally breaks? Share your theories in the comments below. "911 operators are trained to handle everything from heart attacks to homicides, but not a single training manual covers what to do when the dead start calling for help. Dispatch officer Naomi Ellis had worked the night shift at Rose Hill Emergency Services for 8 years. She'd heard it all: domestic violence, car accidents, drug overdoses, but call #64789 was different. It came through at 3:33 a.m. on October 17th, the anniversary of the Rose Hill massacre. The audio was mostly static, with fragments of a man's voice breaking through. "Please help, 1422, Oakwood Lane, basement, still here, they can't see me." Standard procedure dictated sending officers to investigate any potential emergency. As units approached the address, Naomi ran it through the system. 1422 Oakwood Lane, property vacant for 17 years, former residence of Thomas Shepard, perpetrator of the Rose Hill massacre, who killed his family before taking his own life in the basement. All units be advised, you're approaching a historically sensitive location. Proceed with caution. Officer Martinez radioed back. Dispatch, house is secure, no signs of disturbance or entry, no one on premises. Copy that. Can you verify the basement specifically? Caller mentioned basement. Heading there now. 2 minutes passed. Dispatch, basement clear, place is empty, call must be a prank. Naomi was about to close the case when the line beeped again. Same caller ID. They didn't look behind the wall. "I'm still here. He put me here." "Sir, officers have searched the premises. There's no one there." Static crackled. "Then, they need to break through the north wall. He sealed it after. Please, 17 years. The line went dead. Captain Rivera dismissed Naomi's concerns. "It's October. Prank calls about the Shepherd house happen every year. This felt different." Naomi insisted. The caller knew exactly how long it's been. Coincidence? Public information? Then explain how they spoofed a caller ID registered to Thomas Shepard's disconnected landline. That got Rivera's attention. "That's impossible. That number was decommissioned years ago, yet it called us twice last night." Rivera sighed. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I don't know, but something about the north basement wall seems important." Naomi couldn't let it go. After her shift, she drove to the county records office and pulled the original Shepherd house blueprints. The basement dimensions didn't match. According to the plans, there should be an additional 8 feet of space on the north side. That night, the call came again. 3:33 a.m. exactly. "Please, I can hear you in the records office, you know now. Come find me." Naomi felt ice in her veins. "How do you know where I was today?" "I see glimpses, when the signal connects." "Please hurry. He comes back at night." "Who comes back?" "Thomas Shepard is dead." "Not on this side of the wall." The static intensified, then a different voice cut through. Deeper, threatening. "Who are you talking to?" "Emily." The line went dead. Emily, Thomas Shepard's oldest daughter, age 16 at time of death. Except, her body was never found. Against regulations, Naomi convinced Martinez to return to the house with her. In the basement, they measured the north wall. "There's definitely missing space," Martinez admitted. "Knocking against the dry wall sounds hollow beyond." They found a sledgehammer in the garage. 3 strikes later they broke through, revealing a crude chamber roughly 8 feet deep. The space contained only 2 items: a decomposed mattress and a cordless phone, its battery impossibly still powered. As they stared in disbelief, the phone lit up, its screen displaying dialing 911. Martinez backed away. "This is above our pay grade." But Naomi stepped closer, drawn by a faint scratching sound from deeper within the wall cavity. "There's something else back here." She shone her flashlight into the darkness and froze. Hundreds of tally marks covered the furthest wall, over 6,000 of them, 17 years worth of days. The phone at her feet crackled with static. Through her radio she heard dispatch reporting an incoming 911 call. "From this phone, you found me, but now you're in here too." The basement door slammed shut. From the other side of the wall cavity, something began to scratch its way toward them. The investigation that followed uncovered the horrifying truth. Thomas Shepard hadn't killed his oldest daughter. He had sealed her alive inside the wall, with only a phone to torment her, letting her call for help that would never come because the line was connected only to his personal phone. For 17 years, something had remained in that house, something that had learned to reach through phone lines on the anniversary of the tragedy. The search team found Naomi and Martinez unconscious in the basement, the wall completely intact with no evidence it had ever been breached. Both officers were hospitalized for carbon monoxide poisoning, their wild story attributed to hallucinations. But the 911 call logs don't lie, neither does the recording of Naomi's final conversation before losing consciousness. "Naomi, who are you really, caller?" Everyone focuses on who died in this house. No one asks what was born here. "Naomi, what do you mean born, caller?" 17 years of prayers in darkness, 17 years of hatred, 17 years of becoming. "Naomi, becoming what, caller?" Distorted, multiple voices overlapping, something that can dial out. When Naomi was released from the hospital, she discovered missed calls on her personal phone, all from unknown numbers, all at 3:33 a.m. When played, they contained only static and faint whispers too distorted to understand, but the text messages were clear. "You opened the door, now I can reach everyone. Thank you for answering my call." Since then, emergency dispatchers across the country have reported a surge in unusual static-filled calls, all connecting momentarily before dropping, all from numbers that shouldn't exist, all at exactly 3:33 a.m. What was trapped in the walls of 1422 Oakwood Lane? Was it ever really Emily Shepard? And what happens when you answer a call from a number that doesn't exist? Share your theories in the comments below. Retail employees have seen it all. The fights, the trampling, the desperate grab for deals. But at Harrington's department store, they don't talk about what happens during the midnight sale, when the store locks its doors and only exclusive members are allowed to shop. Jamie needed the job. With student loans piling up and rent due, the seasonal position at Harrington's department store was a lifeline, even with the strange stipulations in the contract. "The midnight sale is our most important event of the year," Manager Morris explained during orientation. "It occurs only once, on the last Friday of November. Some rules are non-negotiable: no phones, no cameras, no recording devices. You'll surrender all electronics at the beginning of your shift, and retrieve them after. And most importantly, do not under any circumstances make eye contact with the customers." Jamie nodded along with the other new hires. Eccentric policies were nothing new in retail, especially for exclusive events. "One last thing," Morris added, his voice lowering. "The midnight sale technically ends at 6 a.m., but we'll need you to stay until the cleaning crew finishes. You'll receive triple pay for those hours." "What happens during the cleaning?" someone asked. Morris's smile tightened. "Standard post-event procedures, nothing to worry about." The night of the midnight sale arrived, and Jamie reported for duty at 10 p.m. The senior staff moved with practiced efficiency, covering every mirror and reflective surface with black cloth, replacing the regular lighting with dim red bulbs, and positioning peculiar stone figurines at each entrance. At 11:30 p.m., Morris gathered the staff in the break room. "Remember, do not engage with customers unless directly addressed. If asked to help locate an item, point only. Do not lead customers to another department. Stay in your assigned area, and if you hear your name called, verify the source before responding." "How would we not know who's calling us?" Jamie asked. Morris stared blankly. "Sometimes the voice doesn't match the customer. Trust your instincts." At precisely midnight, the main doors opened. Jamie, stationed in housewares, expected a rush of eager shoppers. Instead, silence fell as the first customers entered. They moved oddly, some too fluidly, others with jerky, unnatural gaits. Their clothing seemed from another era, styles spanning decades, and though Jamie carefully avoided direct eye contact as instructed, Peripheral vision revealed enough features that seemed slightly wrong, proportions that defied human anatomy. A woman in a 1950s dress approached, her movements unnervingly smooth, as if floating just above the floor. Where might I find the cutlery? Jamie pointed to the display behind her. The woman's head rotated, a full 180 degrees to look. Ah yes, how perfect. Her voice sounded like multiple voices speaking in unison. As the night progressed, the store filled with these strange shoppers. They didn't rush or compete for items. Instead, they examined products with detached curiosity, often purchasing mundane items in massive quantities. One person buying 73 identical teacups, another acquiring every single umbrella in stock. At 2:13 a.m., Jamie heard the first scream. It came from electronics, where a new hire named Tyler was stationed. Morris and 3 security guards rushed over. Minutes later, Morris returned alone. Tyler has been relieved of his duties, he announced flatly. Anyone else feeling unwell should report to my office immediately. No one moved. The strangest interactions happened near the fitting rooms. Customers would enter with clothing and exit without it, but carrying shopping bags that seemed to pulse. One particularly tall shopper spent 45 minutes in a fitting room, while a dark liquid seeped under the door. When they emerged, they handed the attendant a wad of cash that left an oily residue. At 3:24 a.m., Jamie was restocking kitchen appliances when someone whispered, "Jamie, help me." It was Tyler's voice, coming from behind a display of blenders. But when Jamie cautiously peered around the corner, no one was there, just a single blender, its cord unplugged yet its blades spinning slowly. "Jamie, they're wearing us." The voice was definitely coming from the blender. Jamie backed away, heart pounding. Nearby, a customer in an immaculate white suit turned, revealing a face that was almost but not quite Tyler's, like someone had studied him briefly and attempted a recreation. "Is there a problem, associate?" the customer asked, Tyler's voice now emerging from their mouth. "And no problem." The customer smiled, their teeth too numerous and too sharp. "Excellent. I'm still getting used to this model. The previous one was insufficient." By 5 a.m., many customers had begun to change. Some grew taller, limbs elongating, others seemed to melt partially, features shifting like wax near flame. All continued shopping, placing items in bags that defied spatial logic. At 5:46 a.m., the overhead speakers crackled. "Attention valued customers, the midnight sale will conclude in 15 minutes. Please bring final selections to the registers." The customers moved en masse to the checkout lanes, forming perfect, equidistant lines. Each transaction followed the same pattern. Items scanned, money exchanged, though the currency looked wrong, too colorful, with symbols instead of numbers, receipt printed. And then, as each customer received their receipt, they would lean forward and whisper something to the cashier, who would nod mechanically before serving the next customer. At exactly 6 a.m., the main doors opened again. The customers filed out in silence, many now wearing sunglasses or scarves despite the lack of daylight. Some moved differently than when they entered, adopting mannerisms reminiscent of the staff. When the last customer exited, Morris locked the doors and turned to the employees. "Well done. Now, please proceed to the break room and wait for the cleaning crew." In the break room, Jamie found the other new hires pale and shaking. Veterans stared blankly ahead, expressionless. "What happened to Tyler?" Jamie whispered to Lisa, another new hire. "Who's Tyler?" Lisa responded, her voice flat. "The guy from electronics. He disappeared." Lisa's face remained blank. There was no Tyler on the schedule tonight. Jamie pulled out the staff roster from orientation. Tyler's name was missing, though Jamie clearly remembered him. The cleaning crew arrived, tall figures in white hazmat suits that covered them completely. They moved through the store methodically, spraying a sweet-smelling mist that made Jamie's vision blur. When they reached the break room, the crew leader addressed the staff. "You have served adequately. Your memories of specific customer interactions will now be neutralized for your protection. Employment contracts remain in effect. The midnight sale never occurred. They sprayed the mist directly at the staff. Jamie held their breath as long as possible, but eventually had to inhale. The world twisted, reality bending at the edges. Jamie woke up at home, with no memory of how they got there. According to their phone, it was Saturday afternoon. They had a text from Morris. "Great job last night. Bonus has been deposited. See you Monday." Checking their bank account, Jamie found an additional $3,000 payment from Harrington's, far more than expected for a single shift. Their memories of the night were foggy, but bruises in the shape of elongated fingers marked their wrist. In their pocket was a receipt from Harrington's, though Jamie didn't remember making any purchases. The receipt listed no items, just a string of symbols, and at the bottom, handwritten in what looked like dark red ink, "See you next year, Jamie. We've already selected our next outfit." In the bathroom mirror, Jamie noticed something odd. Their eyes didn't blink when they wanted them to, and sometimes, when not focusing directly, they could swear their reflection moved a fraction of a second too late. What happens during the midnight sale at Harrington's? Who, or what, are the customers really? And how many employees have unknowingly left with more than just memories? Share your theories in the comments below.